Welcome into another edition, a virtual edition, if you will, of Across the Conference, powered by Allstate, here with Sydney Staples. I am Ari Temkin, and we've got a busy show today recapping super regionals and softball, taking a look at the Big 12 baseball tournament, and looking ahead to regionals in baseball as we are hitting the back end of the spring season, Sydney. And we had a lot of fireworks in the Big 12 and super regionals. Four teams entered, only one is still live in the Women's College World Series, which will be next weekend in Oklahoma City. But Sydney, what's your overall reaction to UCF falling to UCLA? We had a great series between Texas and Arizona State, where Arizona State's magic just fell a little bit short. And then before we get to Texas Tech and Florida and all the fireworks there, Oklahoma State ousted by Nebraska in two games.
I think my first reaction is how not close a lot of these games were across the board. Okay, let's start UCF. When you are losing 9-1 and 14-4, man, that's hard. Listen, I know UCLA is a stellar program, but Nebraska over OSU, we have 8-1 and 9-1. It's like, what happened here? Now, when we look at the Texas regional, okay, ASU, much closer of games, which is what I anticipated to see of everybody else. But it makes me wonder, how close is the Big 12 in comparison to other conferences? And I feel like we've been saying how good they really are, but I look at some of these score lines, I'm like, maybe I had a little too much hope in some of these programs heading into this.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I would say for a UCF program in particular, they last year with a young roster made it two regionals and did not make it past that. So this year, without even being a host of regional, to make it out of the regionals into the super regionals is huge, and it's for me a major step forward. Oklahoma State, you kind of wish they'd been a little bit more competitive with Nebraska, but look, Nebraska is the hottest team in softball right now. They've won 26 straight. They've got arguably the best pitcher in the game. So when you look at kind of where Tennessee is with their pitching staff and Nija, obviously in Texas Tech, like Jordy Fromm is right up there with all of them. So I don't think all of these losses are created equal. I think, UCF to me is a team that, like, look out for them to be a host next year, and who knows how far they can go with that based on just, again, the last 2 years of what they've done. Arizona State is another team where it's like, man, they were completely out of it, and to go all the way to the super regionals and take the defending champs and arguably the best team in softball to the brink. I mean, to win game one behind another stellar performance for Kenzie Brown, to me says a lot. So, I mean, I think the most disappointing outcome from super regional weekend was Oklahoma State not even really being competitive with Nebraska, and especially in a series, following a regional sit in which they scored 34 runs in their regional to back that up with just 2 runs scored against Nebraska's pitching was not great. But I think what Arizona State did, and basically pushing Texas to the brink of elimination, behind another, again, great performance from Kenzie Brown. And then UCF, like, yeah, I mean, they didn't show it well against UCLA, but they did win their regional and do so in a way where they were on the road. I thought that was impressive too. But it all leads up to Texas Tech, which is obviously a team that wins in game 3 in Florida with major fireworks. And to sort of set the table here for the drama, it was well documented. Jason Williams, white chocolate, the former NBA star who played at Florida. His daughter went to Florida to play softball. She transfers to Texas Tech. So all roads lead back for Texas Tech to Gainesville. And the Gainesville fans, the Florida fans, let her have it. In fact, like, the drama started early with Jason Williams apparently being ejected for going after a guy who apparently hit his daughter, a Florida fan that hit his daughter that was ejected from the stadium. Jason Williams, as a byproduct of that, was also ejected from the stadium reportedly. So there was just a ton of fireworks for this early on. Florida plunked Mia Williams 5 times in this 3-game series, twice in game 1, twice in game 2, and then once in game 3. She had 2 home runs in this, including 2 go-ahead 2-run homers in this series. There was no shaking of hands after the series ended because Florida was so upset about Texas Tech. So Texas Tech then went and was celebrating in front of their dugout in front of them. It was just a lot of drama. And then afterwards, after Tim Walton, the Florida coach, was ejected, he went out and basically said like, oh yeah, there wasn't much to it. Like, I don't know why this happened. Like talking about intentionally hitting her. I mean, she just randomly got hit 5 times in the series. That just happened. Is that there wasn't any animosity behind that? I find that hard to believe. And Sydney, like this goes all the way back to what we talked about last week, which is, they went from the darlings of softball last year to the villains now. And this was full, front and center in this Florida Super Regional.
Here's the thing, Ari. Are they really the villains? And I know I posed that question, but when I look at those stat lines and I look at Texas Tech and Florida, that series, why am I not crowning the Gators the villains right now? You made Texas Tech look like they weren't. Do you know what I mean? Like when Texas Tech was not plunking, but the only thing that Texas Tech is really doing is a little bat flip whenever she finally had enough and hits, a 2-run homer at the end of all of this. So it almost, to me, we argue that Texas Tech is the villain, but Ari, at this point, sure, up until this point. But now I think that villain arc is being rewritten into a way that kind of reminds me of like Severus Snape. You hate him, you hate him, you hate him for as long as you can. And all of a sudden, oh, wait a second. They got wrong.
Snape's actually the good guy.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
So maybe that means a lot heading into this Women's College World Series. I mean, listen, Najee Kennedy, she had her 100th career win on Sunday. So again, let's just add a little bit more icing to that cake. Have you heard about these dot cakes? If you haven't, you should, and you should try them. But here's the thing. You run rule Florida at their home. Come on. It's a lot of sweetness for the Red Raiders. I think that they have shedded that villain arc at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it was a crazy game with a lot of comebacks in which, Tech would get out to a big lead and then Florida came back, but it was the second run, that lifted Tech to that 16-7 win. And it's got to feel good for Tech to go on the road, and get this win, and to do it again, kind of backing up Mia Williams, who, it's probably not too much of a guess to understand why she made the transition from Florida to Texas Tech. And, for Texas Tech to be considered villains because, they're creating a new standard in softball, especially when it comes to the monetary side of things. Like, it's for some reason the only area of our society where people are upset with other people making money and getting money in it. And it's like, for me, I don't get it, right? The reality is, if people are going to pay attention to softball and it's going to be a huge piece for your school and university, and I think for Texas Tech it is, then why not? Like, it sounds like the right investments to make. And if you have the right coach with the right mix of girls, like, it's awesome. This should be celebrated instead of being the villains. But that's what the game that Florida wanted to play, and they played a little bit with fire there, and they end up eliminated. So now you turn the page, and the Big 12 is an opportunity to eliminate another SEC program in Mississippi State. That's who Texas Tech will match up with in their first game in the College World Series next weekend.
At this point, it only helps when it comes to softball, but Ari, we have baseball and more to talk about on the other side of this. Kansas, hello. Talk about a game over WVU.
Rock chalk. The Big 12 runs through Lawrence, Kansas. We get into that next. With Sydney Staples, I'm Ari Temkin. We go across the conference here, powered by Allstate on Big 12 Studios. Welcome back. Along with Sydney Staples, I am Ari Temkin. Of course, you can always get us on X or IG at Sydney Staples. I am at Ari Sports. And this is Across the Conference, powered by Allstate, recapping the Big 12 baseball tournament, which was this past weekend in Surprise Stadium in Arizona, the home of the Texas Rangers spring training. Sid, Kansas just continues to tear in the Big 12 here, winning the regular season and now the conference tournament championship. Just the second time ever for Kansas to win the Big 12 tournament championship since 2006 was the first time they won it. And they do it really with getting revenge on a West Virginia team that came and swept them 3 games at the end of the series in Lawrence. The first 3 losses for KU at home in baseball in the Big 12 schedule. West Virginia did whatever they could to try to push Kansas to the brink, but Kansas is able to beat BYU and win the Big 12 championship of the regular season. And then they get their revenge. A matchup that featured 1 versus 2 and we had one playing 4 and two playing 3 in the semis. So it was chalk basically from the semis on, Sid. But we
Yeah.
got a 9-0 victory for Kansas in the Big 12 championship game.
I think a lot of the time you hear people discuss when is the right time to peak, and you always want it to be toward the end of the season, right? So when you are the Jayhawks and you get swept at home just a few weeks ago, it's cause for worry, and you think now this is not the right time. Then all of a sudden, here's the thing: you still win the regular season outright. Now you win when it matters, and not to mention, you shut them out when it matters. It's 9-0. You're not only winning the Big 12 regular season outright, now you're winning the tournament outright. So that worry of, are they peaking at the wrong time? Is this not? No, I don't even know why I even thought about it. No surprise at Surprise Stadium. I am proud of the Jayhawks for this. And I mean, Ari, when watching that game, everything blew up in the 7th inning. When you're having 3 back-to-back homers, one of those being a grand slam, it's just like it never. There was no hope for the Mountaineers after that.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I mean, it comes, Sid, on the heels of a quarterfinal matchup, which Kansas got out to a huge lead on Baylor. They're up 7-1. Baylor climbs all the way back before Kansas. It was basically, I think, Baylor got 4 in the 8th and then 2 in the 9th to tie the game. Kansas then wins it in the 10th with a walk-off. So when you consider that after that, an 8-7 win for Kansas in the quarters, they went on to beat Oklahoma State 9-2 and then West Virginia 9-0. It's 18-2 in the final 2 games between Oklahoma State and West Virginia for Kansas. So they kind of won multiple games within the Big 12 tournament in multiple ways, including, again, the quarterfinals where they had to come from behind, or rather, where they allow Baylor to come from behind and still end up winning the game. So, we'll see. Kansas will be a regional host now, but it doesn't look like they're going to have climbed high enough to become a super regional host as well with a top 8 seed. But what a magical run and season it's been for KU. You kind of sweep the awards here. You win the Big 12 regular season, you win the Big 12 tournament, you have the coach of the year, and you're going to certainly be the highest Big 12 seed in the field. Should be very interesting. And for West Virginia on the other side, what does this do for them? As I'm sure Steve Sabins will look and say, all right, from our pitching perspective, we pitched pretty well throughout this series. I mean, West Virginia in the quarters, they beat K-State 4-2, and then they went on to beat Arizona State. So, like, their pitching really didn't have any issues until they found Kansas's bats.
Is it more so that the pitching was poor, right? But when watching the game, the amount of guys that were left on base, the fact that they just couldn't score. And here's the thing. I know that your defense helps your offense, and all of these things are interconnected. But when you're WVU, you're going to be hosting a regional Morgantown, top 20 RPI in the nation. I mean, I don't have cause for concern as much here, just given the fact that you got guys on base. It's just a matter of their crossing home plate. That can happen, and we see this. All of a sudden, you're seeing 9-0 as a scoreline. That's not really common. So all they need is one floodgate of an inning per se, or at least just getting some consistent guys running over home plate. And I think that it'll be more exciting for us on the other half of this after the NCAA selection show, whenever we're seeing, oh, okay, who's going to be in that regional? Who are they taking on, and what's it going to look like?
Yeah, it looks, like both Kansas and West Virginia will be hosts, but neither will be top 8 seeds to be hosting supers, which will be awfully similar to what we saw on the softball side. 2, regional hosts without any super regional hosts. All right, should we get into our crazy stat? Battle it out?
Yeah, I think we should. Go ahead. I'll have you start.
All right. Well, since it's my Jayhawks, I've got to go with a crazy stat associated with my KU baseball team.
Okay.
Shout out for KU.
Oh.
Thank you.
Look at me repping the whole conference. I outdid you. You're welcome, Big 12 Studios.
Well, I've got to rep my alma mater the day, following the Big 12 tournament and regular season championship. But I digress. Kansas hit 9 home runs in 3 games to win the Big 12 tournament championship, including back-to-back-to-back, and one of those being a grand slam. 9 home runs in 3 games. And when you think about, again, the back-to-back-to-back, also the walk-off in the 10th against Baylor, there's some big-time home runs in big-time spots for KU in this Big 12 tournament. So, try to outdo me there, Sid.
Okay, I will. Number one, when you have white chocolate attached to anything, hello, that's already going to be getting quite a bit of attention. Did we not discuss before we hopped on the show just how much that this Texas Tech Florida series was on our algorithms, was on our For You pages? Sorry, I heard a lot more of that than I did at Kansas winning. Okay, on top of it, when you're Texas Tech and you're run ruling the Gators with all of the things attached to it, and maybe
So
let me add
your
one
crazy
more.
stat is that they run ruled Florida in game 3 with everything else going on?
Yes. Okay. Then I would even argue what's crazier, maybe not a crazier stat, but crazier is the fact that Florida wasn't even going to shake hands. I think a lot more craziness was happening in Gainesville than at Surprise Stadium.
Yeah, I mean, look,
Stats
9
and
home
everything
runs is
included.
9 home runs, including back to back to back. But yeah, I mean, certainly the Big 12 baseball tournament did not involve Jason White Chocolate Williams and not shaking hands and run rule victories as much as
So you're just
as
proving
what we
that I'm
saw.
right. And I know that our producer.
It was more fun. I don't know that it was crazier. I'll say that. Okay.
It's okay. How about this? Our producer Casey will. I know he agrees with me, but we can let the people who are watching decide whether or not mine is crazier or yours. And everybody, as we all know, I'm always right.
All right, you decide. What's crazier? Run ruling Florida in game 3 or 9 home runs for Kansas in 3 games, including back to back to back, and a game walk-off winner for Flowers and KU against Baylor.
Just had to add all that extra fluff when talking about Kansas there, didn't you? It's okay. People will see through that. Mine's crazier.
All right, that's Sydney Staples. I'm Ari Temkin. This is Across the Conference. We are powered by Allstate here on Big 12 Studios. Welcome back across the conference. Final segment on today's show. In Sydney, we've got the official NCAA bracket for the baseball tournament. 6 Big 12 teams make regionals, but I think when you look at the top, that's where the quote-unquote snubs occur, with Kansas winning the tournament and the regular season, getting a 15 seed, and West Virginia, second in the Big 12, getting a 16 seed.
Ari, where could you have seen them being seeded otherwise, other than 15 or 16?
Yeah, I mean, it feels, Sid, like they sort of had those 2 seeds penciled in even before the Big 12 championship. And, look, to a degree, I see it, right? Because West Virginia swept Kansas at the end of the regular season in Lawrence, and then Kansas gets some revenge in the Big 12 tournament championship, so separate them by 1 seed. But I think some of the projections had Kansas maybe as high as a 13 or a 14, especially, I think when you look at the 14 side of it, like, look at Mississippi State. I mean, Mississippi State went 4-6 in SEC series, lost its last 3 weekends and dropped a head-to-head series with Arkansas, and somehow lands as a 14 hosting. Well, Arkansas ends up as the 2 seed in Kansas's regional. So I think that's the difficult part. But at the same time, like, this is the NCAA tournament. There's no easy outs, and you're going to have to beat, if you're the Big 12 and you feel snubbed, you're going to have to beat SEC teams to get, obviously, to Omaha and then in Omaha. So that's just sort of the way it's going to go.
2 of these 16 regionals they're going to be in Lawrence and they're going to be in Morgantown. When you look at the other brackets, let's take, for example, UCF is in the Auburn regional. I mean, I'm a little worried for them, but I look at the rest of them. Tuscaloosa regional, we're going to see the likes of OSU. It could be Holiday's first time getting to see, potentially face Alabama as the OSU head coach. Lincoln Regional is going to be featuring Arizona State. And you know what's interesting? When I was listening to the selection show, they called our man Landon Harrison Harry Bonds. I'm a little upset that we didn't come up with that nickname ourselves. Sorry.
Yeah, in fact, I'm kind of mad you even brought it up in the first place. So we could have just lived in ignorance without even knowing that nickname existed, and then we wouldn't have to be the ones that knew all year with egg on our face. But I digress. I actually like Cincinnati's spot. I mean, I mentioned a moment ago how it's kind of surprising that Mississippi State got the 14 seed. Well, Cincinnati at 39-19 ends up as the 2 seed in that Starkville regional with Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns, and Lipscomb. So I think they have an opportunity potentially to advance. But again, like, even teams that struggle in the SEC are good teams because the SEC is obviously at the front of the class in terms of conference overall. But it feels like the Big 12 got a little bit of disrespect here, especially again to the top. 6 teams get in. It's what we expected. Maybe TCU for a season that started off with so much optimism for TCU. I think even at the end, there was maybe a push for them to be a tournament team. But I think, the committee showed how they felt about the Big 12. And so, when you have your top 2 teams being 15 and 16 seeds, I think that means for the bubble teams, it's, you're not going to have much of a shot there.
With the College World Series beginning on June 12th, Ari, the road to get to Omaha, right? What of these Big 12 teams do you see really have a chance of making it there?
Well, and Kansas, if they're able to get out of their tough region, which feels like Arkansas is constantly in the way in postseason play for Big 12 or for Kansas in their programs. But yeah, you get the 2 seed overall in Georgia Tech in Atlanta, which would be obviously a very, very tough series against one of the best teams in the country. And then West Virginia on the other side, same deal, except they get UCLA, who has the presumptive #1 overall pick, and Rock Schalowski as a part of UCLA's team that's the #1 team in the country. So, you can kind of scratch those off. Not saying that those would be done deals, but obviously you upset the 1 or the 2 seed, that'd be really, really tough. Look, if Arizona State's able to get out of their region in Nebraska, they would have to take on either Auburn or UCF, who's the 2 seed in that region. Cincinnati's in position as the 2 seed in that Starkville regional to potentially get the 3 seed Georgia. So nobody's got an easy path. And the betting favorite here would be for the Big 12 to maybe get 1, I would think, team to Omaha. So we'll see if they could exceed that with 6 teams in the field to start.
I hope we get at least 1, because I think you and we could really giggle about thinking, those little jello shots and stuff that take place in Omaha. Shoot, I want a Big 12 team potentially getting in on that.
Oh, Rocco's? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Rocco's Jello Shot Challenge? Oh, that's a thing. Absolutely. But nobody can outdrink LSU. Let's just call it like it is. They're if you've been to a tailgate in Baton Rouge, nobody's going to drink more Jello shots than them. Nobody's going to drink more anything than them.
Can't wait to talk to you guys after we see what happens in regionals, what Big 12 teams remain in the contest.
Yes, we'll see. So 6 teams enter. Again, the high-seeded teams, maybe not as high-seeded as we thought, but we'll see. This is the NCAA tournament, so there's no easy draws there. But, of course, we'll be recapping what we see out of the Women's College World Series this weekend, and, of course, in a regional weekend for baseball on next week's show. For Sydney Staples, I'm Ari Temkin. This has been Across the Conference, powered by Allstate.